When I saw that Noodles and Company came out with a ramen, as both a ramen lover slash amateur connoisseur and someone who thinks Noodles and Company is actually pretty decent, I was very curious and I knew I had to try this out for y'all. Just to give you a little info on what this ramen contains, it's going to come with ramen noodles, of course, which are sauteed in chili garlic soy sauce, napa and red cabbage, and spinach. And then it's topped with scallions, some parmesan, and an Asian spice blend. Now, I know you guys don't want to hear me sit here and ramble, so we're going to waste no further time. I'm going to go pick this up and we're going to try it out. So initially, as we take a look at this, I thought it was pretty well presented. A hefty garnishing of those scallions on top. And as you can see, this is not your traditional ramen with a broth. It is the ramen noodles, and it's going to have that chili garlic soy sauce. As I get to stirring these noodles around a little bit, you can see more of that spinach is prominent. And there's a little bit of chicken in there. I'm not seeing a ton of it, but maybe it's just buried. You can see the Parmesan garnishing on top, though it looks to sort of have melted and clumped together in one spot, so I'm not sure if it'll be well spread throughout. However, as we stir this around, you can see that's sort of a thicker soy sauce. So it's somewhere in between the thinness of an actual broth, but it's not so thick that I would call it like a gravy. But enough yapping as we stir this up and try and go in for a balanced bite. I was initially impressed upon first bite. It's got a very strong garlic note that definitely comes through, and there is some kick to it that I noticed. I thought that the vegetables all had a good crunch level to them, the scallions contribute a lot flavor-wise, and the spinach is a nice touch. Now this ramen is a limited time only product, and they advertise the price as $8.95, but that's if you get it with no protein. I opted to add chicken, and that adds $4 to the total. And I regret spending those $4 because there was hardly any chicken at all in here. The noodles themselves were filling, and at $8.95 I would have been totally content with that. Spending the extra $4 for very skimply portioned protein was not the move in this case. Let's talk about that Parmesan on top. I initially thought this would be really weird because I never think of adding cheese to ramen, but it actually worked really well, and I was actually finding myself wishing there was more of it throughout. Because that garlic note is really strong, it almost creates a flavor fatigue when you eat enough of it, but the Parmesan does provide an essential contrast. It's got a nutty creaminess to it, as Parmesan contributes to most dishes. And again, I was initially skeptical, asking myself, why the heck would there be Parmesan on a ramen? That makes no sense with how I've had ramen historically, but it worked really well, and it contrasted that strong garlic and ultimately prevented flavor fatigue in the long run eating this dish because it's so garlic prominent. Again, I do wish it was spread more abundantly throughout and that it didn't all clump up in the beginning. I would recommend you stir this as soon as you get it, if you get it in the restaurant or if you get it to go, because the Parmesan will melt together and you will have one very cheesy bite and not enough throughout the rest of it. As far as the spice level on this dish goes, I actually thought it was perfect. There is a nice little kick there, but it's not to the point that it obscures the flavor, and it's not just for athletic endeavor purposes to be a spice king or queen, you know. One way I think this dish could actually be improved is if they added an egg to it, whether it be scrambled egg throughout, or I don't know if you can add an actual like fried or over easy egg, but I think that would make this dish go crazy. Ramen usually comes with an egg, and I think that would be a really nice extra touch. It would probably end up costing more, but I'd be here for it. At that, that's going to sum up my thoughts on this. My biggest disappointment with this was the portioning of the chicken. Don't even spend the extra money on the protein is my 2 cents, because for $8.95, the size of the dish itself was totally sufficient and filling. And honestly, in my opinion, there's enough going on with all the other ingredients that you don't really miss the protein if you don't have it. All of that considered, I gave this a 7.1 out of 10. I thought it was pretty respectable. I do think it is worth trying out, and if you're a garlic and slight spice lover, I think you will enjoy this. Is it authentic ramen in the true sense of the word? Absolutely not. It's more of a creative dish. But the noodles themselves, which I have not really talked about yet, but they had a sufficient amount of tenderness without being overly mushy. I thought the texture and level of doneness of the noodles was pretty well executed, like you would get in a quality ramen. I think that chili garlic soy sauce adds a nice touch. It's very garlic prominent. If you mix that Parmesan in there, it does create some nice nutty contrast with the flavor. Good level of crunch on the vegetables. So again, I think this is a super solid offering. $8.95 sans protein is the way to go in my opinion. But like I said, Noodles and Company, if you're listening, maybe consider adding an egg of some variety to this ramen. I think it would really bring it to the next level. At that sums up my thoughts. Be sure to let me know in the comments if you've tried this new chili garlic ramen from Noodles and Company. What were your thoughts on it? At that, thanks for tuning in. I look forward to chatting in those comments as always. And real quick, if you're a fan of these food reviews, I implore you to check out my food reviews playlist. I've got a mix of chain restaurant reviews and some local places near the Chicago/Chicago suburbs area in general. You'll definitely find something for you. And if you're a fan, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing to help these videos out. It means a lot. At that, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the very next video. Peace.